Everybody, it's me, Mr. Moohead, going it alone today on Moohead Radio. I'm your host, a big and furry bovine, and for the next hour, we're going to be talking about Cleveland sports. And if you want to join us, it's really simple to do it, folks. All you have to do is come on over to mooheadradio.com, or you can check out the show on YouTube. If you want to do that, just look up Moohead Radio on YouTube, and you'll find it. And we are broadcasting live. It's really simple to do it, folks. All you have to do is come on over to mooheadradio.com.
Hold on a sec, I just have to catch
or you can check out the show on YouTube. If you want to do that, just look up Moohead Radio on YouTube, and you'll find it. And we are broadcasting live. It's really
I am on the air,
to
so
do it,
that's
folks.
good
All
news.
you have to do is come on over to Bingo. Okay. I got the chat room up, and I'm going to be monitoring the chat room, so feel free to talk. Hi to Amsterdam and General Dog and Topo Chicho, who are already in the chat room. And Michelle will not be with us today. We're having a lot of problems with the internet, and I'm trying to save bandwidth as best I can. And doing that by going solo. So this is not a referendum on Michelle's future on the program, except it may be a referendum on the future if we can't get this internet connection fixed. Just before we went on the air, I had to reboot the whole system. So it could fall apart at any minute if we're having streaming problems. If you're having any problems seeing this, hi Newman, how you doing? If you're having any problems seeing the stream, please just let me know in the chat room. And because I'm looking directly at my software as well, that usually tells me if we have a streaming problem. I want to start out the program because it's the most recent thing, right? Is what in the fuck was Tito Francona thinking in the Indians' 3-2 loss to the Boston Red Sox? Did he think he was still managing the Red Sox? Look, if Rudy Giuliani can completely forget that 9/11 ever happened, I suppose anybody can have an aneurysm or a stroke and can just forget where they are. Giuliani was the mayor of New York when it happened, and he acknowledged today that all of the terrorist attacks happened during Obama's administration. He forgot about 9/11. It's scary shit. Well, the same thing with Francona. Did he think he was managing the other team? Take a look at the decisions that were made late in this game that could have had even more ridiculous bad impact. First of all, you come to within 3-2, and you have to bring a pitcher in for the ninth inning. But the big three of your late inning bullpen, none of them get to pitch. None of them. Not one of them. Not Andrew Miller. Not Shaw. Not Cody. Instead, we get Zach McAllister again. And Zach McAllister comes out, and he damn near put the game away for the Red Sox. If he hadn't have gotten out of that jam, which was a damn lucky thing that he did, because he's a one-pitch pitcher. And I don't understand why they keep hanging with this guy. But I thought, okay, man, we, thanks, Amsterdam, low def 240. How bad does it look, Amsterdam? Seriously, I'm trying to reduce as much as I can to keep on the air here. How bad does this look? Let me know, Amsterdam. I appreciate it. But then we get into the ninth inning, and it's like, okay, we got things going here. We got Lindor leading off with a double, then we got Napoli walking, and it's like, now we have Carlos Santana, and it's like, I understand the way Tito thinks, if you want to call it thinking, and that's right, Amsterdam. Santana is worthless in clutch situations. I thought that managers looked at tendencies. I guess I'm wrong. You know that he's going to swing at bad pitches. He becomes thoroughly impatient. Even Rick Manning talks about it every single time Santana comes to the plate with men in scoring position. Oh, Amsterdam says you look like old Penthouse with Vaseline on the lens. All right. I love it. Thank you. Oh, thank you very much. But that gives kind of a Gaussian effect or something like that. Hey, anything to stay on the air, right? So you know that Santana's going to come up, and I figured he's going to hit into a double play. But no, he ends up chasing strike three up in the strike zone because he can't control himself. And the guy who walks more than any other Indian when no one's on base. But as soon as people come on base, his swing becomes this horrible Russell Brandon-esque uppercut, and he swings at anything that's anywhere near home plate. Unbelievable. So that was the first thing. But the thing that happens next is what I don't understand. You know that there's one out. You got a man in scoring position. Why would you pinch run Tyler Naquin? All right, let's examine your options here. All right, you're going to pinch hit, and you know you've got Kipnis on the bench, and so Kip's got to hit, right? Who would you rather hit, Tyler Naquin or Abe Almonte? That's what it comes down to, doesn't it, folks? And idiot Francona chose Almonte. Why? Because Naquin's a rookie. We have this over and over and over again with his managerial style, and it's terrible. He is prejudiced against young players. And here's a guy who cheated, cost his team 80 games, where he was suspended for his own selfish personal use of bad stuff. And all's forgiven with Almonte, even though he's made a bunch of blunders in the past week. The worse he plays, the more he's out there. But you had an opportunity. Had you pinch run somebody else, you would have had the opportunity to allow Naquin to hit against a right-handed pitcher instead of Almonte. And Naquin could have played the outfield, and you would have had an easy sub-in, sub-out if you managed to tie the game. But alas, there you have it. That makes too much fucking sense. And I'm really tired when bad decision-making doesn't pan out. I also don't understand why Andrew Miller isn't the immediate eighth inning pitcher for this team. Forget about Shaw. Andrew Miller is a much better player, much better pitcher, much better late inning guy. You know, you can pitch Shaw in the seventh inning. That's fine. But why would you give up what you gave up for Andrew Miller to shove him into the sixth and seventh inning? It doesn't make sense. You know, and Topo Gijo, that's Bronk, is in the is in the chat room saying, and Chisenhall would have batted if Honest Abe had walked. Chisenhall, another great guy with runners in scoring position. So what the fuck was Francona thinking? I have no idea. But whatever the hell it was, it really pissed me off. Okay, let's get to the meat of the program because I wanted to talk Cleveland Browns. What can the Browns do to succeed? All right? And I know what the positives are here, so I'm not going to be unduly negative. But when your biggest positive going into the season, this is like Grand Central Station here with the telephone, and I got no idea who's calling and why. However, I can't answer it. It just says out of area. That means telemarketer. You know, here's the deal. The strongest thing you've got going for you is the potential of three wide receivers. Am I right? Okay, you got Pryor. All right. You've got Gordon, assuming that he can come back to form, and you've got the number one pick, your first round pick this year. You got Corey Coleman. So you got those three guys, and that is the hope of having a quick strike downfield passing offense. And it's like, I get that. You know, that's so much more than what we had last year with the midgets running around the field. It's like, we have some young athleticism and one guy who's that he can do. I'm going to try to come back here, folks, and see if we can make a go of this. But if we can't make a go of it, we're just going to have to wait until next week until this problem gets fixed, because we obviously have a severe internet problem. What I wanted to say was that if you're looking at the depth chart of the Cleveland Browns, you look at the offensive line, how is there going to be an opportunity to get these guys down the field? How is RG3 going to have time to throw them the football when they release from the line of scrimmage to go deep into the pattern? And the answer is, I don't see any way that it's going to happen. I'm looking at the depth chart of the Cleveland Browns as it sits right now, and this is scary shit. I mean, you got offensive linemen who, you got Cam Irving, who we don't even know can play the position at center. You've got Greco, who's serviceable. You've got Pastor now starting because they gave up on Drango before they even played him. I mean, he was number one of the depth chart, and Pastor still got the start and still didn't look very good. So what do we have here? The backups are just as bad or worse. I mean, I don't see offensive linemen that are going to be able to push the running game. I mean, the one thing we saw in the preseason game was that there was no movement on the front line whatsoever. I mean, Crowell didn't even get to handle the goddamn ball. And, Duke Johnson had one run. And honestly, they were just throwing the ball. Run the football, in essence, because we can't block mano a mano. They're not going to have to commit. Teams are not going to have to commit more men to the line of scrimmage to stop the Cleveland Browns running game. And the running game is the very thing with play action passing that's going to allow the receivers to get down the field. So that's my first real concern about this whole season coming up, is that without an offensive line, and when you have a center and a right side of the line that just doesn't have any experience together and isn't even a proven commodity as far as the players themselves are concerned, you're in for a long season. The other thing is the defensive secondary. I mean, Green Bay didn't have any of their starting receivers, none of them. And they still controlled the line of scrimmage in the beginning of the game, were running through the Browns at will and passing with a third string quarterback. They weren't even playing their backup, and they were just moving the ball steadily down the field. Who do we have to cover guys? And if you can't stop the run and you can't stop the pass, it's really going to be a frightening thing, okay? So you have Xavier Cooper makes a good play, here and there. You get a safety in the beginning of the game. But Danny Shelton is not doing what he's supposed to do. And, and I know Amsterdam's saying he's got a terrible pad level. The fact is he's invisible. He's the biggest invisible 335-pound guy I've ever seen in my life. And it's a problem. But one of the big problems is Barkevious Mingo. Did you see him bounce off a third-string quarterback? Barkevious Mingo, I've never seen a guy with such little awareness of where he is on the field. And they want to drop him back into what? Into pass coverage? Guy didn't have a clue where in the fuck he is. I mean, he comes flying through the line of scrimmage like, wow, he's fast. But not only does he not wrap up, he takes the wrong route to the player he's trying to tackle, and then he can't wrap up. It's almost like he's GPS challenged. I don't understand it. I don't think, I've never seen a player. I've seen slow guys. I've seen guys without technique. I've never seen a player like Barkevious Mingo, so highly drafted, who has such little awareness of where he is on the field. And it is amazing to me to watch. So that's a waste. Barkevious Mingo's not going to make this roster. He's not going to make the team. He is not able to play professional football. And these are the things that really hurt. It really hurts a team like the Browns when you go high for a guy and it doesn't pan out whatsoever. You look at the wide receivers, and they're all hurt in one way or another already. Soft tissue injuries for like the 80th season in a row. This is what we're dealing with as Cleveland Browns fans, is that we've got, we're not able to see Corey Coleman because he's got a hammy. Can't see Andrew Hawkins. He's got a hammy. They got the quad thing with Josh Gordon. You've got the hand thing with Pryor. None of these guys are healthy. And how is RG3 supposed to get a rhythm with his first string receivers if none of them can play? And it doesn't help putting you out on the field with the Marlon Moores of the world, okay? And they already had to take Rennell Hall off the roster. He's gone. He broke his leg in a preseason game. And there are other people, too. There's a guy who was a first-round pick for one of the teams, New Orleans Saints. Their guy, their tackle, Sheldon Rankins, he broke his leg. He's gone for the season. So all this stuff happens in the preseason, and it's going to be that much harder for a guy like RG3 to get his feet under him when he's throwing to people. He took heat for the Barnage thing. Now, the interception that RG3 threw, there's questions. First of all, why did he throw the ball if they had underneath coverage? I mean, they had a safety and they had a linebacker in coverage. He threw into double coverage, and you're never supposed to do that. But Barnage stopped running his pattern. It was almost like Barnage said, I'm not going across the middle and laying out in a fucking preseason game. That's what it looked like to me. So it looked like just one of those things that's like, you're leading me there, and I ain't going there. So Barnage said no, and that's how a pick ends up happening. As far as other things that I saw with the Cleveland Browns, it's hard to say when you're looking at so many odd players, and you don't even know who in the hell a lot of them are. But the secondary looked terrible, missing tackles, not in close coverage. I didn't see a lot of backfield penetration. I was looking specifically for Agba, and, he made a play here and there, but by and large, invisible like he's been the entire camp. And he's playing at a strange position. And that's what also happens with the Cleveland Browns is they draft people and they change their positions from what they played in college, and they're completely clueless in the preseason, and they look worse and they get down in the mouth, and it ends up contributing to a bad start of a career. So I was not impressed with Agba. I don't know anybody else who was. I didn't see anybody that on the defense that looked like, wow, that guy, Nassib made a play. He chased a guy down from behind. High motor guy. I think he lacks the athleticism to be a frontline player. Got a lot of desire. You love to have guys like that. Nassib could really contribute possibly on special teams early in his career because he's got the motor and the drive. But as an every down player, I don't see it happening for him, at least not very soon. I don't know. What do the Browns have to do to succeed? Well, I think maybe they took the first step. They took the first step by not taking Carson Wentz. And I think, again, we're going to trace Jared Goff and Carson Wentz during the course of the season. And not that these guys should be expected to be saviors for their organizations. It doesn't necessarily work out that way. However, if they do not do well and are busts, or in the case of Wentz, he took a vicious hit and a hairline fracture ensued, you put in a rookie quarterback who doesn't know exactly what he's doing at the pro level into a half-speed game in a preseason and he gets nailed. North Dakota State, he's not going to see that shit playing for a little school like that. And Goff, that's right, General Dog, he didn't look good either. The speed of the game. And what the rookies don't know is that the speed ramps up doubly in the regular season. The biggest problem is Goff, because Goff is going to be handed the reins to start. Disco Jeff Fisher is going to start him for the Rams. Wentz, they got Bradford still to take the fall and get injured again like he has in 6 out of 7 seasons. But Goff doesn't have that luck. He's the next Tim Couch, the way things look. And it's not like the Rams really have what we would consider to be a high octane kind of offense. And Goff, what we know from what we did when we analyzed him going through the draft process, he's got spindly legs. He's not going to absorb that many hits. The thing that's so funny is that everyone said that's one thing that Carson Wentz has. He has professional size, and he's going to be able to take a licking and keep on ticking. The first good hit he takes, hairline fracture. You cannot predict what's going to happen with quarterbacks. Wiles is saying, I say that RG3 gets hurt between weeks 4 and 6. I think there's a real possibility of that without the offensive line. You have no right side of the line. I don't know, how he's supposed to succeed in this circumstance, but this is why nobody would give him starting money around the league. That's the reason why. Because the league didn't believe that he was a starting quarterback. And the Browns, they may end up ahead of the curve because they didn't take Wentz and Goff. That's what I'll say as far as a positive is concerned. And that's going to be only dependent on the guys they chose, how well they end up doing. But, continuing to look at this, it's kind of blurry here looking at this depth chart. But I'm trying to view this on my... the amazing iPad, but it's blurry. On the starting defense, you've got Xavier Cooper and Danny Shelton and John Hughes, who hasn't been around, okay? And nobody knows where John Hughes is. Well, the Browns do, but nobody else knows what his personal reasons are. And of course, Kruger, Demario Davis is an inside linebacker. I didn't hear his name the whole time. Kirksey, I heard his name once in the first half of the game. Nate Orchard didn't do anything at all after rushing the passer a little bit last year. of course, we haven't seen Hayden yet. Tremont, so our safeties are Hayden our cornerbacks are Hayden and Tremont Williams, but then Poyer and Campbell, which is just a torch waiting to happen. Just a torch waiting to happen. I don't know. And injuries are going to force some of these second unit guys to actually play. And, you're not going to know what you have until week 3 of the preseason when you get to see these players play for any length of time. As far as the story goes with Josh Gordon, he's thrilled to be back. He believes he's the same guy he was in 2013. We'll shortly find out. But all it will take is for one of those 3 receivers to go down with a big injury, and all of the hope will be snuffed out as far as our wide receiving core. And I know that Hugh Jackson wants to have an active running game. I know this to be the case, and I don't know how in the hell it's going to happen in a situation where we don't have anybody on the offensive line. So, what do I think the Browns season is? It's too early to say what the season's going to be. But, hey, even Tim Couch's 99 Browns were 2-14. You'd like to think you could get 2 games anyway. 23 minutes past the hour of 6. You've got it tuned to Mr. Moohead on Moohead Radio. We've talked Indians, we've talked Browns, and, sometimes we get into the world that we live in, and I don't mean anything, political or anything like that, but the attitude of the public. People are asking me, hey, what do you think of the Olympics? And I don't watch Bub Radio Time. Bing bong, 23 minutes past the hour of 6. Thank you, Amsterdam. We're on Bub Radio. I don't watch the Olympics because I watch professional sports. I mean, what do I want to watch Team USA basketball for? My Cavaliers won. The NBA season's long over. I'm looking forward to the next one, and I don't want to see that crap, okay? I don't want to see it at all. And, there's some great human stories, some great, you love to see Usain Bolt. That's exciting. You see Michael Phelps. You love to see that. That's great, all right? But the rest of it, really, I don't care a whole hell of a lot about. But what's interesting is some of the shit that's gone down. You got Gabby Douglas, the gymnast, who's taking shit on social media and has for 4 years because she doesn't smile enough and she's not expressive enough. And then you have Justin Gatlin, the sprinter who lost to Usain Bolt, who's the guy who was using PEDs and was obviously a cheater and has been trying to reclaim his reputation cleanly, but unfortunately happened at a time when Usain Bolt came out of the woodwork. At 34 years of age, Justin Gatlin tried his last try and couldn't get it done. He ran a 9.80 earlier in the Olympics, but only ran a 9.89, and that's not good enough to beat a 9.81 from Usain Bolt, and chances are he wasn't going to anyway. The thing that's interesting about this is the hate on the part of the fans who are watching the event. In the fucking Olympics, hate. I can't believe this. But I mean, stop and think for a minute. What would have happened during all the years that we watched the Olympic Games? I've never seen a stadium full of booing before. But when Justin Gatlin stepped up to the starting line to run his 100-meter dash, gold, race, the final race with Usain Bolt, when he was announced, the entire crowd started to boo. I don't mean a little bit. I mean like a din of negativity. So much so that the other athletes that were in the race were really embarrassed about the entire situation. And the same thing with Gabby Douglas, who gets nothing but hate. And it's like she was the 2012, she was the one who won the whole thing in 2012. And she's still taking shit. Still taking shit. It's really hard for me to fathom. Why all the hating? And I look around and I say, there's a lot of anger on the part of sports fans. And why is it this way now? And it never used to be that way before. And I believe because of the internet. I'll give you some great examples. There are people on the internet who are just hated, reviled. And the reason they're hated is because a million other people hate that person. You got 13-year-old girls singing songs about Friday. 13 years old, and she has a YouTube page filled with hate, and they have to shut down the YouTube page because people are hating on a 13-year-old girl who sings a silly little pop song. But it's easy to hate when you got a million haters behind you. And it's easy for the idiots in the rat-infested Rio de Janeiro, the Zika-infested Rio de Janeiro, the green algae pool-infested Rio de Janeiro, to boo a guy who's 34 years old and trying to run clean to beat a guy who's fucking unbeatable, all right? And instead all he gets is an earful of boos. Yet those same fans will be cheering on an obviously greater cheater. People who have cheated in their sports all the more. When did Lance Armstrong get booed while he's going through the peloton? How many times did you see him? Fuck you, Lance, you're a cheat. Never happened. USA, USA. You know, why do we choose to hate one person who's a cheat? Abraham Almonte. You know, why do we choose to hate some people and other people who are cheaters, Roger Clemens, not? Why does Mark McGwire get a job in Major League Baseball, but Pete Rose can't get into the Hall of Fame because he gambled? Why do we hate so much? And the reason is because online, folks, there are millions of soldiers of hate, and they get behind the person they hate the most. And it's easy to join their ranks because you can just go along to get along. And it's easy to hate Gabby Douglas when there's a million other people making the same comments about her over and over again. And it does. It goes right into our political system, too. And I'm going to be apolitical in this. The press won't let the con thing die for Trump. And people won't let the email thing die for Hillary. You've got Sean Hannity saying she has brain damage from their 2012 incident and that nobody's talking about. And then you've got Rudy Giuliani, who's going to start a whole new talk cycle by forgetting that 9/11 ever happened. And we don't talk about the issues. It's like a wave of hate. That's what we got, a fucking wave of hate. And the more haters that we have, the easier it is to get behind them. And at the top of the heap is Stephen A. Smith, who goes off on Carmelo Anthony. And let's examine that for a minute because it really bothers the piss out of me. Carmelo Anthony's quote was taken a little bit out of context, but basically what he said was, hey, if I end up going my whole career and I don't win an NBA championship, like LeBron did, that doesn't happen for me. If I get some gold medals and stuff like that, and if I did well in my college career and in my pro career, I'll consider myself a success. You know, I'll look back very fondly on my professional career. And here comes Stephen A. Smith to say, what a bunch of horseshit. You know, you don't want to win a championship. You think your career could be a success and labeled successful because you did, even though you didn't win a national, a world championship, and you're not holding the trophy like LeBron, and you're willing to settle for that? And he went on a hate rage. I mean, it was a rant 2 days ago. Today, he's apologizing. Okay, well, I didn't know it was taken out of context. But, you know, I have something to say to Stephen A. Smith. You got a fucking dinky little midday show on ESPN with Max fucking Kellerman. That's the best they could dredge you up after the other idiot left. All right? And I used to hire talent, and I hired talent a lot better than Max Kellerman. That's for goddamn sure. How come you're not on the highest rated show, Stephen A. Smith? I'm going to compare your career to Carmelo's and say, you know, you didn't win any trophies either, you schmuck. But I'm sure that when you look at your bank account, your wife and your kids, and you support them, that you probably look at your career as successful. And I think most people would. I would say, hey, Stephen, you're a successful guy. You're on ESPN. There's lots of people who never even come close to making national television. Good for you. But how would he like it if I sat him down and said, man, you are one arrogant motherfucker, man, because you think that you're satisfied with your career? You're not even the top-rated show on ESPN, and holy cow, you're not even on a prime shift. Are you kidding me? They only give you a little half-hour kind of a thing at a time, and who are you to be satisfied with your career? Or if I looked at myself and said, geez, Mr. Moohead, you never owned a radio station in New York City or Boston or in Los Angeles or in Chicago. You owned in little cities like Flint, Michigan, and Binghamton, New York, and Danville, Illinois. And I say to you, God, I'm very proud of what I accomplished professionally. And you say, no, you're a fucking failure because you never made it to the ultimate level. I want to remind everybody, that very few people make it to the ultimate level, to the ultimate rung of success. You can only succeed within the parameters that you have in front of you. The New York Knicks are not going to win a world championship. They haven't had world championship caliber players. And no, Carmelo Anthony doesn't have a skill set that LeBron James has. And if he were part of a team that was a big three, yeah, I suppose that he could win a championship. But the way it is right now, there ain't no way that he's going to carry Porzingis and Derrick Rose over the threshold. It's not going to happen. And, ever since idiot Zedmeister has shown up on the scene, they got worse, not better. It's not his fault they haven't won the world championship. It's not his fault. But gotta pick on somebody. And Stephen A., he's an idiot New York Knicks fan. He's like another Spike Lee guy. He's an idiot at courtside. And he's got to hate on somebody and blame somebody. And that's the problem with fans. And, you got to watch what you say because it'll be misinterpreted. I would be proud of myself, too, if I was one of the top scorers in the NBA and I was making God knows how many $1 million a year. $20 million a year or whatever Carmelo's making. I think that we would all be proud of ourselves, and I think we would have a right to be, right? By the way, if for all you fantasy football fans, here's the headline: foolish to expect big numbers from RG3. Here is your ESPN fantasy projection that he will throw for 2,900 yards and 15 touchdowns. That is the Fantasy League guess of ESPN fantasy projection. And that assumes that he plays 16 games. I don't think you can necessarily make that conclusion, but that's what they're saying. I think there's a real good chance that you're going to have Josh McCown again playing quarterback for the Browns before too long. But so you don't get totally carried away. Next on the list. I just wanted to point out something that amazes me. When the Indians were on FS1, Fox Sports 1, on a national telecast, we got one Cleveland announcer and we got one announcer for the Angels. So we got Gubaza, who was the Angels announcer, and then we had Matt Underwood. I mean, Rick Manning must feel like a real sack of shit in this situation. Underwood must be in so deep with Sports Time Ohio. It's got to be crazy. He's one of the worst announcers I've ever heard in my life. If you haven't heard, the Florida Marlins, who are in contention, have a tremendous player, Giancarlo Stanton. He hits monster home runs, and he's gone for the season now. An MRI showed bad news for him, and he's gone for the season. And what does Matt Underwood on the air say? Well, what's happening down there in Miami is just terrible. John Carlos Stanton is out for this. John Carlos Stanton? I mean, how in the hell could he be a professional announcer and not know that it's Giancarlo? How could he possibly be that stupid? Don't ask me. It's amazing. Next. I'm going through stories here. I like to see what I have, and I'm still streaming. I'm actually halfway amazed that I'm still streaming. Let's go back to the Indians for a minute because it was a bad loss today. You hate to lose, and I'm looking directly in the direction of Josh Tomlin. It's very hard when you score a limited number of runs for Josh Tomlin to win. From 11-2 to 11-6, this is the second half we kind of expected from him. And the reason that it's very hard for him to win in lower scoring games is that he gives up the long ball. We've talked about this before and bit him in the sixth inning twice. David Ortiz, you don't throw a down low inside cutter to him that he can pull, and you do it anyway, and then the same thing happens with Bradley. And again, too many long balls per inning pitched. Way too many. And Amsterdam says Underwood thinks infield fly rule hits are warning track. Yeah, he's got no depth perception either. He's got no perception. The Indians, I respect Tomlin for being a gutty guy who makes the most out of what he has. But The fact is, believe it or not, Pomeranz, who only has a 90-mile-an-hour top-end fastball, was much sharper and had a sharp breaking ball and kept the Indians at bay. And he deserved to win the game. And I'm sure he had the juices flowing because his first 2 outings with the Red Sox were not good. He was pitching very well for the Padres of the National League since he's come over to the American League, like over a 5 earned run average. And but I'm sure he was juiced to play the Indians, the team that originally traded him out west. So there you have that. That's always the case. I know that Mike Clevenger was all excited when he basically one hit the Angels, because that was the organization that gave up on him. So there's always part of that. You know, while we're talking about preseason, you know, it's funny. One of the successful stories, if you're looking at rookie quarterbacks in the NFL in the preseason week 1, and I know Ohio State fans are drooling at the prospect of Cardale Jones being a successful professional quarterback. He played very well. To put it in perspective, his stats, he was 11 for 21 for 162 yards. It's still only a 50% completion rate, but he ran 4 times for 34 yards. He damn near pulled off. He played Taylor, which will tell you everything you need to know, basically. Cardale Jones is a guy who's got a big league arm. He's not an accurate thrower, and that's what happened at Ohio State that landed him in hot water, is that there were too many 3-and-outs. We're back for one last stab, and I just want to finish the program, and hopefully YouTube will stitch this together. We're going to have to continue to fight this for a Wednesday and Friday if I really bother to do it. We have Monday, our wiring people coming back in here to rewire the house, and hopefully that'll help our connection. I get the feeling that this thing is shorting out somewhere. I'm hoping that's the case, because if it's not the case and we can't get this thing repaired through, because ATT has done everything they said they could possibly do, if the problem isn't in our home wiring, then it's going to be impossible to do this program. So not necessarily the best news. But I wanted to finish out with, what are people thinking? The Chicago Cubs, who have a very successful baseball team, have fired an employee. The employee was the guy who was in charge of the sound system when Aroldis Chapman left the mound during Sunday's game. The Cubs said an employee played Prodigy Smack My Bitch Up after Chapman pitched the 9th inning of a 6-4 loss to the St. Louis Cardinals. That employee was fired immediately. We apologize for the irresponsible music selection. Of course, Aroldis Chapman was involved in a domestic abuse situation last season. It's really unbelievable to me that an employee could sit there and play something hateful like that. But again, what is it about Aroldis Chapman that gets the derision of a guy to play a song like that when he finishes up an inning? And yet there are other people who commit. Thank you so much to everybody. I'll see you again on Wednesday. Until then, hasta la vista, Pasture Heads.